That's me.
Greetings.
Hello there, and welcome to this Tinker Different live stream. I was busily bringing up the chat here so that I could actually chat. But anyhow, thank you very much for joining us for this Tinker Different live stream. This is the 3rd anniversary live stream, so this is a pretty major milestone for the Tinker Different forum. They said it would never last, but here we are at the 3-year mark. We have done a few of these before, and the general premise is that it's more, there are a couple of things that we're doing here. We are just showing that the Tinker Different board have faces, and also give everyone the opportunity to sort of ask us questions. But the main purpose is to just go through some of the really awesome stuff that appears on the Tinker Different forum. At the end of the day, we've got these amazing creative minds out there, and as I've said before, it's an amazing time to be, you know, sort of into retro computing, because there are just people just coming up with stuff left, right, and center, and it's hard for us all to keep up. So Kai has gone through the forum and he's picked out a few of his favorites, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring them up and we're just going to give our thoughts on them, show everyone, you know, what they are, what they do, and all that sort of stuff, and make sort of general comments on them. And then we will follow that with a Q&A session. So that will be, you know, sort of any questions that you guys have, just drop them into the chat, and we will answer as many of them as we can. Questions such as, Kai, when are we going to get this 2SI Reloaded board? They're the sorts of questions that we certainly expect to be getting at the end of this. So, so anyhow, that's pretty much it. I am going to just sort of go around the room here and say hello, everyone. I'm going to do it in an anti-clockwise direction, only because I want to introduce Kai first, because he is the president. So hello, Kai, welcome to the live stream. I don't really need to welcome you to your own live stream, but never mind.
I took the melted marshmallow out of my beard before I came. Okay?
So
I still smell a fire pit.
Well, what time is it there at the moment?
4 minutes past 11 at night.
Okay, no worries. And you've already had some festivities.
I'm on sparkling water right now. The bourbon has been put away, as has the malt cider and the wine and the beer.
Time for some black
many
coffee.
Alcohols.
No worries. Okay, so the most important thing here is if people do have questions, not particularly challenging ones for Kai, let's keep those questions.
No, trust me. The more concentration, the better. It'll help sober up quicker.
And we also have Justin. So welcome, Justin. And Justin, of course, I'm sure many of you have seen his live streams. I think you've got one scheduled for. I saw something popped up in my Facebook feed. I think you've got one scheduled for not too far away as it is. So
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. There you go, without fail. So that's excellent. And we also have Eric here of Blue Scuzzy fame. Hello, Eric. Hello. Thank you very much for joining. We unfortunately because we are dealing with so many different time zones and stuff, and obviously we're on the weekend, and some people have, you know, other things already planned. So we would love to have as many of the board members here as possible, but we don't necessarily get everyone. But anyhow, this is it. And then of course we also have a special guest. One of the original Tinker Different founders, Steve from Mac 84, who's muted at the moment. So you're going to have to unmute. So,
no,
hello, Steve.
I'm Colin from This Does Not Compute. That's my name.
Yes.
If Colin does show up, one of you is going to have to fight to the death for that title, okay?
So, yes, unfortunately, Colin... he did say a while ago that he was going to try and make it, but I'm not sure what the chances are of that now. But we will see. But Colin,
I'm his representative.
Yes. So he's the most recent addition to the Tinker Different board after Ron unfortunately stepped down from his role. Colin expressed some interest, and so he is now a member of the board, keeping the peace with all of the moderators. So. That's his role. So anyhow, does anyone have anything that they want to say before we get rolling and start looking at all the stuff on the forum? Anyone? Nope. Okay, Bueller. Okay, no worries. Okie dokie. So, as I say, these were picked out by Kai, and I'm just going to share my screen now, and we can start having a look at some of these cool things on the forum. So, this first one here, Zane Kaminsky, and we may even see Zane Kaminsky later on in this live stream. We will wait and see, but hopefully,
it's
maybe.
possible he may pop into the chat at some point. However, he did mention that he is otherwise engaged, so I will speak on his behalf of this.
Okay, no problem. Now, do you want to take this away, Kai? You are a lot closer to this than I
am. Yeah, so basically, after the SE Reloaded came out, there was a bit of momentum kind of behind it to pimp it out, basically. This was before the SE30 Reloaded kind of came onto the scene. And Zane was like, "Oh, I wonder if," and then kind of took that ball and ran with it. Now, there's been a lot of accelerators for the SE. A lot of them were 68020, even some 68030 accelerators, as we've seen, certainly from Bol as well. Things like the Daystar Power Cache, that sort of thing. However, you don't necessarily have to use an 020 or an 030 and introduce a whole host of bus translation into the mix when actually a 68,000 clocked pretty high can actually give an 020 accelerator a good run for its money. Now, one of our moderators, Tech Knight, has taken one of the prototype versions of this, and you can go and see it on his channel, The Tech Knight on YouTube. And he'll show you a couple of demonstrations of this thing, and it basically keeps pace with 68020 at 16 megahertz. This is running at 25 megahertz. There's still, some bugs to work out in the firmware, but things are being very fine-tuned. And James Wages, aka JDW, again, one of our founder members, former colleagues, and YouTuber himself, has also been diving deep with this, with regards to testing out different firmware revisions as well, most notably around sound. I think that's about the only kind of major issue at the moment. But essentially, this has the SE ROMs loaded onto it, so they're running at the speed of the accelerator, not at the speed of the board. So that's speeds things up immensely. But it's essentially a 68,000 just running at 25 megahertz. So the
original was at 8. Is that correct?
The original was 7.8316 megahertz. Yeah, if you want to be really precise about it.
Excuse me.
8. No. Hey, there we go. We got Mac Effects in chat as well. Brilliant. Hey, Mac Effects.
Yeah.
Hi, Mark. So yeah, this 68,000 accelerator, it's designed to be cheap, like easy to put together, easy to flash, like with all Garrett's Workshop stuff, built really well, like a tank. This thing to be easily configurable. I mean, obviously, this is just like we're scrolling through the first page here. These are going to be going into production, quote unquote, soon, once the hardware revisions have been kind of like ironed out some of the bugs. But you can see these, like Zane is going like full tilt on this. Like, as you can see, there's bus timing diagrams and all sorts all over the place. The level of detail that Zane goes into with every one of these posts around this, like for the last 3 years, has been absolutely immense. Now, there was a brief kind of hiatus on it for a couple of months, but he's come out the gate swinging with more hardware prototypes and doing firmware revisions by the dozen, like in the space of a day. There you go, have 5 firmware revisions, test them, see how they go. So yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic project, which I think everybody that owns an SE should definitely get behind and try out. I think as I said, the only bug that's kind of really remaining is just getting the sound tweaked just right. But that's been a problem with accelerators on Macs, certainly the 68,000 based Macs, for a very long time. Even like Radius accelerators have had that problem as well.
Well, the Radius rocket, when you restart into the Radius rocket, so it first starts with the normal CPU, and then the extension comes up, and then it restarts into the Radius rocket. And when that happens, the chime is all high pitched for that first chime.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic to see the Macintosh SE getting some love. I mean, the SE30 seems to get all of the fancy stuff. You know, it's really, really good to see someone building something for the SE. And I noticed it has a USB connector on it that is assumed for flashing firmware and stuff like that.
That is for flashing firmware, but also the latest hardware revision will be also for powering the card outside of the system for flashing the firmware.
Okay.
But I mean, if you jump ahead to I think maybe the last page or the page before the latest one. There's some pictures of the
holy crap, 39 pages.
39 pages. Yeah, there's a lot of detail on it as well. So it might be I think the previous page. I mean, James updated it like today even. So yeah, you can see James has been sort of heavily involved in the testing of this as well. There we go. So we've got the new WarpSE with an overclocking board connector, so you can chunk this thing up to 35 megahertz if you really want to go that far and just push the absolute limits. But even at 25 megahertz, on some of the previous pages, JDW showed that this accelerator outpaces an original SE by about 3.5 times.
Excellent.
Which is on par with an SE30.
That's pretty amazing. And so, what's the plan with this? Is it going to be sold as a ready to go board, pre-assembled with all the parts on it?
Basically, yeah. It's going to be a case of you pay money, you get fully built accelerator in the post.
Okay.
Parents Workshop has a pick and place machine as well, so that they can assemble these boards like automatically. So you won't have to do any soldering yourself. It'll just come as a fully assembled accelerator, ready to go, plug it in, and then that's it. There's no special CDEVs that you'll need to install. There's no funky extensions like some accelerator boards have. It is literally plug it in, turn on. Done.
Wonderful. And
another advantage of the fact that it's essentially just taking over from the onboard 68,000, and it's still 68,000, and there's no weirdness kind of going on to kind of interface it to a 32-bit CPU.
Is there any rough idea of price at this stage?
I don't know the specifics on price. It may have been mentioned in that thread, though, by Zane. But as you can see, 39 pages. There's a lot of stuff in
let's start our way through it now. Okay.
Page 1.
There's some interesting things too that they're doing with the ROM, and I believe all of this stuff is open source as well, as I think everything Garrett's Workshop does. But they're looking at, or he's looking at putting the classic ROM, which has a few bug fixes and a few other things on the accelerator. So that could open up some interesting possibilities for the SE. So
I assume that means it will be bootable like the classic.
Yes,
I believe so. I believe that's the.
It's kind of got back ported into the latest revision of the SE Reloaded board as well. I broke out an additional address line pin so that anybody wanting to build a certain ROM module with a classic ROM built into it instead would also be able to use that on an SE Reloaded board.
Wonderful. Excellent. So does anyone have anything else they would like to comment on this? Anything they want to say? Anything like that? Anyone? Even a wow, this is cool.
I mean, shut up and take my money.
I'll take 10 of them, please.
Actually, Jeremy's got a very good question. No, the accelerator cannot do anything about the RAM limitation with the Mac SE. So with the WarpSE, you are still limited to 4 megabytes because it's still using the motherboard memory as its main memory pool. That is the limit of the BBU chip on the SE. A lot of the accelerators that were 020 and 030 based had their own RAM on their own bus, and that's how they got past that limitation. But that's also when they started introducing weird extensions and CDEVs and ROM incompatibilities and weirdness. You will still be limited to 4 megs, but I mean, an SE running System 6 with one of these things is going to fly.
So you don't need any extensions or anything to use it. It's a plug and play.
No, completely plug and play. I mean, it's been designed so that the ROMs live on the accelerator themselves, and they're switchable, or at least they will be switchable between the regular SE with the 800K IWM, the SE FD HD with the SWIM, and the classic ROM as well, which should be bootable. Now, basically, because everything is all on the accelerator, and the accelerator is essentially taking over from a majority of stuff, it's essentially just using the BBU as memory access and interfacing with the other custom ICs on the board, such as the SWIM, the ADB, etc. The actual CPU is taken completely out of the mix, but because it's still 68,000 base, there's no issues with interfacing to the bus, so it takes over completely on boot, and everything just runs off it instead.
Excellent. I did have a question. Oh, yes. So I actually, it was more of a statement than anything, because I remember talking to you. There were lots of people talking to you when you were doing the reloaded board of both the SE and the Classic, talking about, hey, can you build this to take more memory? And I remember you saying at the time that was not possible. But what I did want to say is that, as you kind of pointed out, if you are, if you're running an SE or a Classic for that matter, in System 6 or something along those lines, and you're playing the period, appropriate games or applications on it, 4 is plenty. When you consider that they came out with
1.
Exactly. So
1 was a lot in 1987.
Yeah. I'm not sure what people actually have in mind with an SE or a Classic if they want more than 4 megabytes of RAM. I mean, let's face it, it's not exactly a great Photoshop experience on that little 512 by whatever is it, 3 something screen. So I definitely think that 4 megabytes is ample for a machine of this age. That's just my opinion anyway.
Mark from MacRecorder has just come up with a very good question. So the Brainstorm BBU, although it was being decapped, it hasn't been mapped out. Unfortunately, we've got the physical plan of the silicon itself, but it hasn't been passed through D-Gate, and nobody has thus taken on the insane task of reverse engineering it. However, even if you were to create a custom BBU, as it were, to fit in the place of the PLCC socket, you'd still need something to break out additional address lines. So you'd still have to have some sort of daughter board plugging into the PLCC with additional address lines, but that wouldn't allow you to use 4 megabyte SIMs, because then you'd need to modify the motherboard as well. It's technically possible, but it'll involve a lot more work, and you'd essentially end up having to create your own custom Macintosh SE board from scratch, which, again, while possible, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Maybe just get an SE30 board and drop it in your SE case. That's probably the easiest thing.
Exactly. If you want to go down that route and have more than 4 megabytes of memory, SE30, and we know the SE30 reloaded are out there, and they do use the same glue chip as a 2CX as well. So, get a hold of one of those. All of the PAL equations are available on Bold's GitHub, for that. And after that, most other ICs that an SE30 reloaded uses are available through God knows how many other Macs which use exactly the same chips and exactly the same packages. And you might as well, build an FPGA based clone at that point, which again, I think, Zane is probably going to work on next. After this, he did mention, he was like, oh, well, why bother reverse engineering the BBU? Let's just reverse engineer all the things and make it into an FPGA single board machine.
Oh, well, okay. All right. Well, I think we'll probably move away from this one now. As much as I love it, I feel like we got to keep it a moving.
Mm-hmm.
So this one here. Now, this is really nifty. It's so simple, but a really nifty little thing. So, once again, is this one that you would like to talk about, Kai?
I can do. Yeah, I put this in here because I've got my own PowerBook 180 down here, and the PowerBook situation for 180s. Again, they're 7.5 volts, but they're higher current, especially for things like the 180C and all the rest of it. Finding working power bricks for the 100 series is becoming very, very, very difficult because a lot of them are just died. Yeah, they come out of the box dead now. When you buy one on eBay, they generally don't work anymore. They've all exploded. And so this is a wonderfully simple solution for using an existing Apple USB-C charger that you can use on any iPad and just use it to power your PowerBook. It's a way of interfacing a modern Apple power supply to your ancient PowerBook.
I really would like to start seeing this for all of them.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I certainly don't disagree that it's needed, and it's certainly possible. But this, I think, is a fantastic start, and it's so ridiculously simple as well. It's like, why has no one thought of this before? You know?
Yeah, indeed.
Off the shelf parts, and just, I mean, you can see there, what's his name made a whole bunch of different voltages, and you're seeing a lot of these with different retro things as well. I know Javier made one for the Apple IIc USB power delivery. So just if you can get the right connector and the USB-C power delivery puts out the voltage and amps you need, you can make it. And there's lots of cheap power delivery adapter boards out there on Amazon that you can pick up.
I really do see this as being something that's going to continue and take off for pretty much every model that's out there, because this to me just seems so incredibly practical. And I mean, when you think of all the different chargers for all the different sort of Mac laptops over the years, that people will just be making these, you can just plug into a standard USB-C sort of outlet. I actually think it's a really, really clever thing, and I'm amazed no one thought of it before.
Yeah.
But I mean, as simple as it is what I consider to be an incredibly practical thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to tell a quick little anecdote here. So yesterday I picked up a product called an unmouse. So if you're ever feeling like you've just got way too many mice, you go and get yourself an unmouse. And it is essentially just a little touchpad type thing, little trackpad type thing for a Mac. And anyhow, I picked this up for pretty cheap. And it was supplied with a US power supply. And I thought to myself, oh, that's cool. I'll just nip up to the local JCar and grab a replacement power supply. Well, this power supply supplies both 5 and 12 volts simultaneously. So I've actually had to order a power supply that you would use to power a hard drive that has both a 5 and a 12 volt power supply. I've got that coming, so it's not something I can just pick up at the local shop. But it does get a little bit trickier when you need a power supply to supply 2 different power sources, which I have actually seen on a couple of older devices. But anyhow, that's my anecdote finished. Does anyone have anything else they want to talk about with this, or should we just move on to the next one? Oh, Steve, please.
I just think this is great because there are so many of those bad power supplies that you can actually kill your PowerBook with. So it's nice to have an alternative that is fairly user-friendly with the voltages. And, this is a great go-to for somebody picking up one of these systems and then they don't have the power adapter. And those power adapters, on eBay or some other place, can easily double the price of whatever you're trying to buy. You buy an untested iBook for like $50. Now you have to go find that power supply. So this is great. I love that not only the older PowerBooks are supported, but like the PowerBook G3 and the iBooks and stuff like that. So it's really cool.
Yeah, excellent. And things like the plugs, for example, if I was to say, look at a titanium G4 laptop, they have those little plugs with a little illuminated ring around the outside. Now, the illuminated ring isn't really necessary, but the plug itself, I mean, are these plugs that are available? Are they standardized plugs that you could potentially go in and make power supplies for every laptop, or are we going to be limited by the types of plugs out there for some of them?
Yeah, I think the PowerBook and the iBook, if you look on the image that is toward the right of the image, the opposite of that cable that's blue, you see it looks like a headphone jack style.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look very closely at the connector for the right angle connector also, inside of that barrel jack is basically like a smaller headphone jack style connector. So I know that people have hacked those in the past just to like test the power delivery of those things. So you might not get like an Apple genuine part, but there are ways to sort of force it, especially with clever folks like us. So
okay, no worries. So you could theoretically make a power adapter from scratch without needing Apple parts or without needing to pull apart an old broken power supply or something like that. It may not look the same, but it will still function.
Yeah, and there were a number of third-party ones, airline adapters and car adapters and things like that you could also pull them from. Sure.
Yeah, cool.
The 500 series has a weird dual pin or dual 16 volt or whatever that is, but I think they still make them because wasn't Ron able to find some or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think somebody else sourced them, but he did the little PCB board for them. But it is a odd connector, but it also looks similar enough to like the G4 Cube power adapter. So it's like someone made it somewhere, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All we need is the plug. Everyone else, people can figure everything else out.
Just DuPont wires in there.
Okay, so on to the next one. And is this... Oh, now this is one that I just saw and went, whoa! Whoa!
Yep.
So I can just start this, but I'm sure someone will need to take this over. But essentially, this is a little device that allows you to take an SE30 up to 256 megabytes of RAM. That in itself is one thing, but way faster than the original RAM as well. Now, one of my pet peeves with an SE30 are those little RAM sockets. They are what a pain in the backside they are, and they're flaky. And often with old SE30s, you can be in a situation where the computer's not working, and it's simply not working because the RAM socket's RAM's not making proper contact with the socket, and so you end up putting things in to push the sockets and you push the RAM sims up against them and stuff like that. So this allows you to just bypass the sockets on the board altogether and use 256 megabytes of RAM. Now, I have actually been in touch about this because I would love to do a video about this, but unfortunately I have to wait because that honor for the first has been bestowed upon JDW, who of course did a lot of work with testing on this, and so he gets first crack at the video on this. But I'll hopefully do one at some stage in the not too distant future as well. But anyhow, I will let someone take over this because I don't know a whole lot about this.
I mean, to be honest, this was a late addition to the to the list. Essentially, this is one of those projects that kind of crops up, almost flies under the radar because we've now got so many members that the posts happen at such a rate that it's quite easy, unless you're very on top of it, to miss stuff like this. Unfortunately, but I thought this was a fantastic, idea, and just the, fair enough. Replacing the RAM, 32 meg, can understand. 64, 128 meg, yeah, I can also understand. This is just off the wall nuts. Like, why 256? Why not 256? Let's just. How much RAM do you have? Yes, you can run anything. Create a RAM disk bigger than the SE30's original hard drive. Just. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna dispute Garth Beagle on this one. I hope they don't have the RAM check in boot. Otherwise, you will turn it on, you'll get a tone, and then you will be waiting for an eternity. You will not only be able to make a coffee, you will be able to go drive to Starbucks, ponder their menu for 10 minutes, order something, drink it, come back, sit down, and you'll still have to make another cup of coffee before it will boot.
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, there is still the RAM check in there, but if you have like the
if you've got one of these, please, for the love of God, get a ROM in.
Yeah. I mean, look, he straight off the bat he recommends to get yourself like a big mess of wires ROM, which of course is 32-bit clean, and he said it will be a lot better. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I actually got in touch with them and I said, look, have you ever considered going down the path of potentially making different variations of this, ones with different, with a different cost associated with them? So maybe make a 64 megabyte one, make a 128 megabyte one, make a 256 megabyte one. But in actual fact, this one here is currently the most cost-effective way of doing it. So there would be no cost savings in actually going with a smaller one. He said that there are this is I should mention, this is available for sale now. I mean, this isn't the sort of pie in the sky stuff. You can actually buy one of these right now. There's a link in here somewhere, so. Is that it there?
It's at the very top.
Yeah. No, right
The
there.
first word in the article.
Yeah, there it is. So $269, which, let's face it, it's a chunk of change. But I mean, I spent absurd amounts of money making one of my SE30s grayscale. So why wouldn't I do this? I mean, answer me that. So I will definitely be getting one of these. And I did talk to him about the costs. I said to him, are you likely to be able to lower the costs if you were to produce more of them? Is this going to be a limited run thing, or are you going to continue complete fulfilling orders as long as you keep getting them? And ultimately he said, yes, he's going to keep fulfilling orders as long as he keeps getting them. He'll keep making them. The cost is that he is selling these for is relative to the cost of making these things, in terms of all the work that goes into them, the amount of R&D that went into them, and the checking and all that sort of stuff. So to be honest, I look at that cost and I think, yeah, that's an awful lot of money to be spending on an old Mac. But at the same time, I don't think it's an unreasonable amount of money to turn your SE30 into something very, very different. So,
it's one of those funny cases that certainly when you've done as much searching through Mouser components as I have, sorry, PTSD, the semiconductor breakdown that you get for like SRAM, SDRAM chips, that sort of thing, you'll quite often find there's like a sweet spot. So I can very much get the reason why this is 256, because if a 128 and a 256 are like 3 cents different from each other, why would you build one with 128 when the 256 is available? Also, 128, they might be EOL'd or not recommended for new devices, but the 256s will keep being made for longer. So again, it's kind of more future proofing, but again, it's all about kind of finding that sweet spot, which is why I fully understand why this is just so off the wall, because why not? So I have to ask the question, what do you do with 256 megabytes on an SE30? Anything you damn well want. Yeah. It's like I said, you can create a RAM disk that's 128 megs in size and still have 128 megs of RAM available. Yeah. You could allocate 200 megs of memory to a RAM disk and still have 56 megs of RAM available if you really wanted to.
You could probably play Doom.
I mean, given the state of the book, yeah.
But
a gold star to anybody who uses it all up.
There's some interesting things on this too. Like, I mean, I don't know if he's mentioned it, what the expansion header is for, not the PDS expansion header, but his expansion header. Or it does
in the thread, yeah.
He does mention
it. Yeah, he does mention it in the thread. So that's for the ECS2 signal.
No, the whole expansion header on there.
It might be in the thread.
Okay, well, let's go back to the thread.
But then there's an FPU LED, and he does mention that. But it's kind of funny that there's you can have LED access, so you're using your FPU.
More blinking lights, more better.
Yep.
We love blinking lights.
Finally, an FPU LED.
And of course, this is the other really important thing, is that it is faster. That's the important thing. I mean, he's done these speed tests here using the card, and it is faster than the original RAM. So you are giving your SE30 a speed boost as well as a very significant RAM boost. So
there we go. That's the little doohickey that you can plug in to enable the ECS signal to the PDS card, which increases the speed even further over that card at stock.
I see.
Wonderful. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I am definitely going to be grabbing one of these when I have some money. I've blown my vintage budget this month, so my vintage, computer budget this month. So it might have to wait till next month.
Can you use your grayscale card and this at the same time?
Well, the grayscale card is pretty bulky up the side there, so it would have to then go horizontally, I guess. It's possible.
There some rules about what you can plug into the horizontal one?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
There is some outlined here. I'm curious myself because I have that lapis color card, and then I have an Ethernet card, so I don't
Just
know
gonna be
if
like
I can
Jenga
plug
or
these in.
something with your cards.
Thankfully, I don't have an analog board, so it's not
Yeah.
the CRT to get in the way either.
I noticed on this post it says you can use true PDS cards with this RAM card, but not cache cards. Of course, why would you want to use a cache card with this thing? It's faster, probably.
Yeah, that's right.
But they of course had to say it. But if so, and the other thing they do mention that heavy PDS cards may require reinforcement,
Emotional support.
Yes,
Yeah, emotional support, yes.
I would expect that. Yeah, I was going to say something about it, but I forgot what it was. Can't be that important.
Ron says you can only plug Limbo certified cards into the vertical slots.
It's a really interesting thing that I know we're all joking about the FPU LED, but the number of times I have people contacting me and saying, "Oh, what's the advantage of putting an FPU on this Mac? If we're talking about like an LC3 or something like Color Classic, what's the advantage of putting an FPU?" And I said, well, it will, it'll be faster at calculating non-integer numbers, floating numbers. And where will that benefit me? And
Excel.
when the computer needs to do lots of calculations of non-integer numbers, I guess. I'm not really sure. It looks better on the speed tests, so you've got that advantage. But I tell you what, if we actually have an FPU light going off, we could be sitting there going, "Look, it's working. It's doing its thing right now."
I wonder if that light just comes on just when it goes, "Hey, FPU." Yeah, what? Nothing.
Well, back in the day, you used to use soft FPU because you had there's that one or two things that would need an FPU, but you'd have to do it in software.
Yep. I remember that well because I'm old. So anyhow, that one there, as I say, it's available to buy now. He does say that you do need to be a pretty proficient tinkerer to use one of these, because I think he said there was some soldering involved or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I think it was actually on the ad for it. But I think an absolutely fantastic thing, and I commend him for doing that. It's absolutely fantastic.
The soldering's required for that little adapter board that routes one of the CPU signals to the card.
Okay.
You don't have to install it according to the description.
But
if you want to install it I know. But if you don't install that board, you'll have 3 cycle reads instead of 2 cycle reads.
Not even worth it.
Yeah.
What's nice as well is the fact that YMK has also specified that this is directly compatible with some pre-existing accelerator boards as well. So it's not like you have to have one or the other. You can have both.
Wonderful. And build an SE30 like Sean from Action Retro.
Just remove the curse.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Now, we're a little bit later here. Now, we're not talking about the really, really early Macs, because this is a COM slot, and the COM slots we only see on some of those later Macs. So is there anyone here who would like to...
I'll take the conch on this one, because Andromeda is currently unavailable to join until potentially a little bit later. So I'll give a brief rundown on this. So ComSlot 2 cards, very difficult to find these days. A lot of the machines that came with a ComSlot didn't come with built-in Ethernet, so they used the ComSlot instead to add Ethernet functionality. However, it was during that period where those kind of Macs didn't tend to be networked, so they didn't sell a lot of them. And because they didn't sell a lot of them, they're kind of few and far between, and therefore ridiculously expensive. However, The COM slot 2 is essentially PCI by any other name. It's just Apple being Apple and reassigning the pins on the connector, doing their own thing, so you can't just jam a PCI card in there. But the signals go straight back to the PCI controller. And essentially, it's just PCI with fewer pins, as it says in the thread there. Now, the chip which is used on this is a very standard industry chip. There's a set of drivers immediately available for it, and it will basically give any Mac which has a COM slot 2 that requires Ethernet capability. And as you can see, it's pretty basic. There's not, there's not a lot to it. It's not a lot of like expensive voodoo and reverse engineering and oh my god, they've used a weird controller chip. It's like, no, this is just standard off the shelf PCI part re-engineered to COM slot 2.
Yeah, it's kind of Androida being Androida. You've seen people charging hundreds and hundreds of dollars for something, and just an Ethernet controller that's so simple that you just implemented it. So, and I think one of the interesting things, because talking with him while he was building this, is that doing speed tests was like, well, this isn't very fast, and we had to do some speed comparisons between real COM slot 2 devices and this one, and actually just they weren't that fast. He thought, well, did I do something wrong? Is something funky here? But no, they're just slow. So
okay. And so what sort of computers will be, for people who don't know, what sort of computers are we talking about here that have COM slots in them?
So that 603 era, isn't it, mostly?
Mostly 603. So like I think it was the 5000 series, the all-in-ones.
Okay. Or the ones that are falling apart.
Yeah.
The Performa 6000 series.
Yeah, Performa 6000.
Some of the weird Mac clones, like the Apple's 4400, where they cheaped out and didn't give you the PCI, the third slot on the riser card. They gave you a COM slot in some regions. So
because if 4400 wasn't cursed enough.
Because this is the thing, from my perspective, I thought a lot of those computers were just coming with Ethernet standard by that stage, but they obviously were not.
I think it's also the market for the machines where these were originally. It's like a lot of the machines that had these slots were like home computers where no one had like cable internet or an Ethernet, so you use the 56K modem. That's what gave you internet.
And the idea was that COM slot would either have the modem or you can put in the Ethernet card. So unfortunately, a lot of folks like myself and Ron have bought machines. Look, it has an Ethernet card, and you get it home, and it's like, oh no, it's not.
It's a modem. One of the most useful things in today's world.
Especially now they've turned the analog phone system off, at least in this country.
Yeah. Well, that's a great little thing, and once again, I think as you sort of pointed out, the wonderful thing about this is people were charging a lot of money for old ones of these, and this is a way of actually getting hold of this a lot cheaper. So that's a really, really good thing, for the community in general. So that's wonderful. All right.
I'll say that a lot of those Apple Ethernet COM slot 2 cards, like I've gotten a few in the systems, and they're just dead. Like they don't turn on, no light activity. System doesn't recognize it or anything. So what I found like so good about this project was like you don't have to pay stupid money to get your little Performa 6200 online, your 4400 or whatever. And in the test that I did with mine, it was very, very quick compared to the Apple card. It was just as fast. And I did like a bunch of Apple Talk tests and stuff like that. And it's like, copy 150 megabyte file in like 3 minutes. That's fast enough for anybody. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's what I've got a few of those sorts of Macs in a car in my driveway. I must go in and have a look and see whether they are ones with modems or Ethernet cards. I'm very curious to know now.
Have you taken up Steve's kind of like hoarding stuff in a van on your driveway?
It's kind of like that. So I have this I have this car which I've been meaning to sell for a long time. I don't need it anymore, but I need to kind of clean it up a little bit before I sell it and that sort of stuff. And so it's just been sitting there. So in the meantime, it's become old Mac storage. So I've got a couple of, I think, 5500s in there, and it's got an eMac and a few G5 iMacs and 3 or 4 G4 towers It's got a Snow G3 in there. You can fit a lot of computers in this car.
Yes.
And I haven't even put anything on the driver's seat yet. Now it's still only just the boot, the back seat, and the trunk and the
Well,
back
it's
seat.
convenient to
and
drive your computers around to the shed. So
it's the car's not registered, so I can drive it up the driveway and back down again. So,
I mean, I have no room to talk on this because I've been driving around since 2022 with a 14-inch Apple monitor in my trunk.
You never know when you're going to need it.
It's been there, and every time I look at it, I think, oh, I must bring that inside, and then I kind of I can stay in the car.
I think this car is a 2001 model. So just answering Jeremy's question there, I think it's just pushing 25 years. I also have a 1970 Dodge Phoenix. Now that will fit a lot of Macs in it. That is
an entire Apple production plant in that car, Bruce.
But I've at this stage so far I have resisted the temptation to put any Macs in that, mainly because it's not as watertight as the other car. Okay, so that's enough about storing old Macs in cars. What have we got? Oh, did I? Okay, TashRecorder.
Yeah.
Now, I need someone to explain this to me because I always thought Macs had the ability to record audio as it was. So I need someone to explain what this is and why it helps the world.
Justin, I think you want to take this.
Yes, I will take this. Yes. So in the beginning was the Mac 128, 512 plus. They had all these wonderful capabilities, but no microphone import. Therefore, Farallon came out with the MacRecorder, a nice beige box, kind of like this. That these usually go for crazy money on eBay until you manage to snag one for cheap, which I did. But anyways. These usually are somewhat expensive, but they plug into the serial port, give you basic recording capabilities because there's microphone port, built-in microphone, whatnot. But those could be hard to find. So through the magic of reverse engineering, I'm not looking at the page, but anyways, that's where the TashRecorder came into play. It is a clone of the Farallon MacRecorder. In fact, it has many of the same capabilities. It's got a built-in microphone. It's got a level knob on it. And you can even plug in a external input. And it plugs into serial port.
Nice.
But basically, it's like an identical clone. It uses the same software. And so for those old Macs that didn't have built-in microphone ports, or even if you wanted to use it with one that does have a built-in microphone port. I mean, I totally hooked it up to my LC to test it, even though it has a built-in microphone jack. I mean, you get your basic sound recording capabilities. So this project, I would say, isn't for the person that wants high fidelity sound. This is for the person that wants
sound.
You want sound. You want it to sound like it did in the old days. But you don't want to pay the usual crazy eBay money to get an actual Farallon MacRecorder.
So it's another one of these things that it's that contribution to the to the community, so that you can get something which people are charging ridiculous amounts of money for on eBay. So that's wonderful. Is that case looks like it's injection molded?
Yeah, it's actually I think from I got it from Mauser, so it's like a stock case you can order from Mauser.
All right. Okay,
that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then so that it looks nice, you just probably want to get the PCBs manufactured for the front and back in blue solder mask, because actually these are PCBs, so you don't have to cut or drill the inserts that come with the case. You just order the PCBs for the front and back, and they slip right in.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a cool little thing.
So there's the thread, and I know a couple people have done YouTube videos on it.
Awesome.
Including potentially someone sitting here on the left side of the screen.
Well, we will be putting links to all of these in the description too, by the way. So if anyone is watching this as a replay, we'll be putting all these sorts of links in the description. So yeah, wonderful. There it is. Cute little thing. It's even got a Farallon logo on it.
It does.
Oh, you got to get in trouble. Farallon are going to take him to the cleaners. So
Someone's going to raise Farallon out from the grave to stew all the money out of the open source project and then go back in the grave, I guess.
Somewhere a Farallon engineer is climbing into a DeLorean as we speak.
Actually, somewhere a Farallon former employee might be going like, yes, this is awesome. I can't believe they're making these again.
they remember me.
They remembered me.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So let's jump across now to, and so, yeah, just to recap just very quickly. So you get this device and you just use the original Farallon drivers and software and all that sort of stuff. It just works with it. Yep.
Just the software. You don't need to install the driver. You just run the software and it works.
That is fantastic.
Also, it is a through hole. All the parts are through hole.
Oh, I hate that.
The most difficult part is programming the microcontroller, because you'll need the programmer for it. But all the parts are through hole, so it would be what I would consider a less experienced soldering friendly project. Maybe you wouldn't want to take it for your first project because there's a lot of parts, but basic soldering skills and you can build one.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right, so what have we got next? We have got, oops, oh, that's the...
Don't know, that's the one.
Oh!
It's from TashDari, who developed the TashRecorder, has also developed the TashPad, which allows you to plug in SNES or Super Famicom controllers into your Mac. So that if you want a game on a Mac and use a GamePad, ta-da!
Wow. That is so awesome.
Another dead simple little doohickey using an off-the-shelf project box that you can get from Mauser.
I think it's the same project box.
It is. It is the same project box.
I love this idea because there was this, I think it was called Joypad, or there was a very generic name that they made back in the day. And there was an ADB version or a serial version and a USB version for the Mac. And I've had an eBay save search for well over a decade and never saw like an actual example of one. It was one of those things you order out of the catalog or something like that. So it's really cool to have, these adapters for the older systems, because there's a bunch of them for USB systems. So having one for an ADB system is really, really cool, because those Mac Gravis pads, they're okay, but especially with all the retro stuff of, they're reproducing Super Nintendo style controllers with that same port, you now have like an endless supply. So this adapter is great.
And so this is another one where it's just, you basically go to the GitHub, you grab the Gerbers, you order the parts, and you just put the whole thing together yourself. I assume.
It looks like it. It looks like it may even use the same microcontroller as the TashRecorder. So
okay. Wow, that is really, really impressive. It's again, we're just talking about these things that sort of are so simple, benefit everyone, so that's just absolutely awesome. Okay, so that's that. And what are we up to next?
So the last hardware project, which is, and actually I'd suggest leaving it on that last post on that on that page. So
how dare you? I take credit for making a question.
For asking the question. Can somebody design yes, and this is all thanks to DOSFox now. Within the last fortnight, new EGRETs have not only been programmed, but they work. Nice. So if you've ever had any Mac board where the EGRETs died, and you're like, okay, I give up, because again, not available off the shelf. It was an Apple annoying specific part. It's a 68 HC05 microcontroller that essentially Apple changed the pin assignments for and got custom made off the shelf. But DOSFox basically took this, ran with it, along with Francois Revol, aka MMU Man, and has made brand new EGRET chips.
Yes. This is why I made the post, because I had a very sad Macintosh TV that was battery bombed, and that EGRET chip is very, very cruddy. And so I had stumbled upon a few threads of people talking about that stuff all over the web. And as the post says, in summer of 2023, I'm like, anybody working on anything like this? Because I've seen dumps of things. I've seen people theorize about stuff. And it just goes to show that if you don't know how to do it yourself, just make a post and be like, hi, I do the thing with the other thing, but I don't know how to do this thing. Sure enough, a year later, bam.
This is a perfect example of, like Steve says, is just like, where things can go if you just ask the question. Whether it's on the forum, whether it's in the Discord. In the Discord, the lab hardware Discord subsection that we have was on fire for about a day when this was all coming out, and so much technical stuff that will probably eventually make it into that thread, but just reams and reams and reams of technical stuff that even I am like, well, could you just slow down? No.
Now, there will be an opportunity for everyone to do all the play on words between egret and regrets later on. We'll cover that in a minute. But I just wanted to, I've got a quick question to ask. So lots of computers around a certain era had these egrets that look like this. For example, Steve was talking about the Macintosh TV, but things like the Color Classic, the LCs, the 575, 475, all of these have these egret chips, and they've all got slightly different numbers on them. How similar are all these egret chips from one computer to the next? Are they interchangeable even though they have different numbers on them?
No. Again, it was one of those things where, so the very first egret chips that came out were essentially just an off-the-shelf 688005, and as they kind of developed them, the firmware for them changed, but so did some of the pen assignments. Even though they did exactly the same job and had the same signal outputs, Apple swapped stuff around for no other reason than they just wanted to be obtuse. But that's essentially the way they ended up doing it, which is why you can't take a 0788 and an 0851 and swap them around, but you can take an 851 and an 850 and swap them because they haven't changed the pin assignment. The firmware was different.
By pure experimentation, I have found some compatibilities between some of them of a particular era with like the Color Classic and some of the others. Because I did something, and I apologize to everyone for this. But if anyone has ever used UT Source before, you can often go looking for something on UT Source, and you go, oh, I'm after this little chip, and you find it. You think, oh, it's only like 50 cents or $1 a chip. I'm going to go buy 20 of those. No worries, 50 even. So you order them all, and you get it back. And then what you suddenly find is you have created interest in that product, and next time you go to buy one, it's 10 times the price. Mm-hmm. So I've seen this happen with UT Source so many times, and I think I am responsible for pushing up the price of CUDA chips because I bought a stack of them on UT Source. So I want to apologize to everyone for that, but do let me know if you need one because I've got quite a few spares.
For only $19.99 plus.
What's the UT Source price? I'll do it for half.
Probably $399.99 at this point.
But we've all experienced this before. I mean, you get onto UT Source and it's like, oh wow, look, they've got the original DIP real-time clock chips off the old Macs. Wow, look at that. So you order a whole bunch, and then you say to someone, I just bought a whole stack of those on UT Source, and then people go, yeah, I checked there, but they're like now $50 each. It's like, oh crap, sorry, that was me.
That was me, and that was both of us, Bruce. We cleared them out. We probably had some poor Chinese intern running around a warehouse going, we must find more. They're taking off.
Okay, so it looks like Steve has to head off. So
yes.
Thank you very much for joining us, Steve.
Thank you for joining us, Steve.
I will continue to take all the credit for this egret stuff as it develops.
Awesome.
I'm just going to miss all the fun times I've had bodging wires onto egret chips.
Yes, or rebuilding little pins on them and stuff like that when they've been corroded completely through.
Drumming the housings away just to solder something onto a leg that's no longer there.
So if someone wants to get one of these replacement chips, what's the step? What does one need to do?
So as you can see by the date on there, October 24th, it's literally only been a week.
Yeah. Okay.
Since it's like, woohoo, we've done this, it now works. And now to the point where it definitely works, being verified that these chips are programmable and they can be programmed with the firmware that is available and that they work. Where we go from here is wait and see. Keep an eye on the thread, but it's done. It's finished. It's
excellent.
It's just give DOSFox some time.
It looks like if you see the video there, that is an LC2 that has a replacement EGRET on it on Tech Knight's post.
Okay, so let me just go back here. So I just I clicked the button just as you said that. So this one here.
That one there.
Yep, that's it. Yep. Bing.
And you hear it chime.
Yep. Wonderful.
Now, I will say that DOSFox is an absolute frigging genius when it comes to this sort of thing. It's not in a thread yet, but I did feel like since we're talking about his reverse engineering efforts with regards to this, it's only fair to mention he has also reverse engineered the Sony SND chip as well, both as through-hole dip parts as a test, but also will be coming out with an SMD version shortly, along with the entire schematic. You can build one yourself. So that's another chip we can tick off the list.
Well,
been done.
What's the Sony SND chip go to?
So the Sony SND chip on boards like the SE and the SE30, it's it also handles things like the reset, but also it's essentially it's an amalgamation of a lot of the sound logic from the original 128 and 512 at a single IC. So on those machines, I think it uses something like I want to say it's like a CD4066 CMOS chip, and then like resistor dividers and stuff of various different volume levels and stuff like that. But it's that and the reset line and a couple of other bits all sort of shoved into a single chip.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
All right, I am going to move on to the next one because I've still got a few here to go, and we have been going for an hour now. So,
wow.
Okay.
Don't forget to smash that like button if you like this project
everyone,
we're talking about.
Please like that smash button. And do the things. Press all the things.
Press all the things. The thumbs ups. The joining of the Discord. The
subscribing and things. Yeah.
Sending us pies in the mail. Yeah, maybe not that. But
Jaffa cakes.
Oh, Bruce! If you want Jaffa cakes, I was just in the store today. They have literally a 2-meter long box of Jaffa cakes.
I don't need them. We've got Tim Tams here, so we're all good.
Trade you.
Sounds like a good idea, actually. Okay, so what's this Netatalk thing all about? Who's going to talk about this?
So I was hoping that Radmark or RD Mark on the forum would be here for this. Unfortunately, he cannot be. Essentially, AFP file sharing has been sort of deprecated from a lot of different devices, but essentially this is a way of enabling modern AFP on pretty much any system. I mean, Eric, you might be more up to speed on this.
I think Netatalk. Sorry, I missed the beginning of this. I had to jump for something. But the Netatalk 2 was kind of the last version that used to be compatible all the way down to like Apple II or Mac OS 6 or 4 or whatever that is. But in Netatalk 3, they kind of modernized it to work with Mac OS X and Apple Talk over IP and things like that. But what he did here is kind of bring that all back together into one package. So Netatalk 4, you can actually connect from your M3 or M4 MacBook to the same share. You connect to your Mac Plus or Apple II and transfer files. And actually on a Mac, you can actually transfer resources as well. So you can actually unstuff it with the unarchiver on your modern MacBook and copy the files over. All the resources will be saved and just copy and run programs off your Netatalk share. they did a lot of cool things too. Like there's Docker containers. So if your NAS uses a Docker to manage it, you can just kind of bring up that container and start serving your files. Yeah, and he's been pushing to get into the next release of Debian as well. So he's done a lot of work, kind of cleaning up the packaging there so it'll be available in Linux distributions coming forward. So it's really a lot of work going into Netatalk 4. So it's pretty cool.
So we're basically just talking about if you've got your old Mac on your Ethernet network, you can actually start doing file sharing between your modern hardware, which hasn't been able to talk to Apple Talk for ages, will now be able to do it.
Yep, you can use Netatalk as a bridge between there.
That is extremely good. That is, I think, something that would be very, very useful for anyone who's ended up having to use FTP as a bridge between the new and the old. I think this would be absolutely wonderful. So
yep, and then I actually used the TashRouter, so it's kind of piggybacking on the same chip that the Tash microphone that we were just talking about used, but you can actually bridge Apple Talk and Ethernet with a little device. So like on a Mac Plus, you unless you had like a SCSI Ethernet adapter, you wouldn't be able to connect to it, but you can actually bridge it with this little router that he has, or you can use a Power Mac, and what that has Apple Talk or Local Talk and Ethernet to bridge it as well. So yeah, lots of options.
Just want to highlight a comment in the chat from Sam Johnson, who says that Netatalk 4 has been such a nice addition to my workflow. Now I can drop a file in Finder on Sequoia and have it appear on my SE with the resource forks maintained, which wasn't possible before.
That is really good. I will definitely be looking into this after this live stream, that's for sure. I didn't realize this was going on, so this is just showing that I don't spend enough time on Tinker Difference. So there you go. I know. No, it's terrible. Busy person. Okay. Well, that's unless anyone has anything else to comment on that, I will probably move on to the next one. No? Cool.
Probably going to be Eric's domain as well. Macproxy.
Was that one of them?
Well, there's a couple things about Macproxy. Mark has been maintaining Netatalk and Macproxy, so he forked Macproxy and kind of added a whole bunch of things. Added to Docker Hub, but there was a video that some younger gentleman made and kind of took Macproxy to the next level as well. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but he added in extensions, added in kind of AI hallucinated browsing of vintage Mac sites. It's really interesting because you can kind of just like, you type in a site that doesn't exist, it'll build a vintage site that looks like it might have existed back in the day. And he did this all just kind of for fun and just kind of weird stuff. So I'll find the video here after we're done talking and post it. But Macproxy, if you don't know what it is a little web proxy because, like 68,000 machines can't handle JavaScript or CSS or any of those things. So it kind of just strips all that stuff out. And this post specifically is just him making a Docker image so you can run it easily on your NAS or wherever you run your little Docker images. So
cool. Excellent.
Cool.
So getting more of the internets onto the old computers.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So that is cool. All righty. Now, we're now moving on to 3D prints. So everyone buckle up for that.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have, now this is something which I think there are a few of these around, aren't there? I feel like this isn't the only one of these, but it is a little sort of filler in between so that you can, it's connected up an iPad, is it?
That looks like an iPad.
So put an iPad into the case of a Mac Plus, is that correct?
So it's using an iPad currently, but it's more for demonstration purposes to show that you can add a standard LCD screen into that, and it basically fills up the void space that a CRT wouldn't have, because obviously a CRT is curved, flat. So if you're using something like video converter circuitry to output TTL video and then passing that into an LCD display, you can remove the analog board entirely, run off something like a Pico PSU, and ta-da, you've got LCD. So if your CRT's busted but your board works, it's another option.
Yeah, I've got a Macintosh Plus with a dead flyback transformer, and if I can't find a replacement flyback transformer, that's the sort of thing I'll be doing. Oh, have you got a replacement flyback transformer?
I actually have. There's a supplier in the US who sells brand new old stock ones of these transformers. And also, if you have a Mac Plus flyback that's dead, replace it with one from an SE, it will work fine.
Yes, but the problem is that every compact Mac that I have at the moment works. So I don't actually want to sacrifice an SE to bring a Plus to life. So I sort of...
I've got an analog board up there that's been waiting for me to do exactly that, because I've got a Plus with a dead flyback transformer as well. Like it's one of those... Oh, why isn't this working? You want to look at the flyback transformer. Oh, okay, 10,000 volts have escaped from that very quickly.
Yes, well, mine wasn't like that, but it did. It fried the BU2406 or whatever. There's a little thing in the circuit, and if the flyback transformer goes bad, it cooks that little IC, which I have since replaced.
Isolator,
and so that was smoking. So, and it's not good when you get smoke from those sorts of things.
Never released the magic smoke.
No. So I have since I temporarily put a flyback from an SE in there just to check it out. It's still got a few problems, but I'm getting mostly a picture. But yeah, I would like to ideally fix it because it's a Mac Plus. I mean, I want to repair them. But if I can't get hold of a new flyback transformer for a reasonable amount of money, then yes, I will probably go down the LCD path and do something like this. I put an LCD screen into a Macintosh Classic probably about 10 years ago now, more than 10 years actually, a very long time ago. And I ended up getting a place. This sort of predated me having a 3D printer, but I ended up getting a place print out a little bit of black perspex that I could put in between there, but it still didn't fill the void. It made it look all right as long as you didn't look too closely. But the beauty of 3D printing is, of course, you can get things absolutely precise and totally fill that curved void, which is a wonderful thing. Perhaps not in blue filament though. Maybe a slightly less noticeable color.
I mean, it depends. If you got like a Mac, something like a Mac Effects clear case, why not?
Yeah, I suppose Mac Effects clear case for sure. I definitely understand that.
Or print it in luminous filament.
Yeah, glow in the dark stuff. Absolutely, that's fantastic.
How cool would that be? Just kind of a glow in the dark kind of Tron style rim around your not CRT.
Yeah, so that is wonderful. Where is it available? He's got it on Printables. Okay, this is on Printables. So I guess the main sites we would have Printables, Thingiverse. There's another one, make something. I can't remember. There's quite a few of these 3D printing websites available out there. But it's great that people are building these things and sharing them. So that's a very useful one for people who will want to do these sorts of modern upgrades to their vintage Macs. So that is awesome. What else have we got? We've got rubber pads, 3D printed. Okay, so these.
It's one side of things that we don't often see on Macs, or in fact anything in the kind of recreation space. Everyone generally focuses on the hardware, the internals. Very few on the cosmetics, and I think this is absolutely fantastic. That basically, so MMU Man, aka Francois Revol, he has basically been having a go at trying to print the rubber feet that always seem to turn to gunk.
Yeah, they go
just dissolve. And he's using thermoplastic polyurethane from a 3D printer to essentially print new rubber pads for stuff. Obviously, you can see all the various different kind of iterations of how these things look, and I think they look great. I think they look absolutely bloody fantastic. And more people doing more cosmetic stuff. Just needs to be a thing, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, and of course, Joe from Joe's Computer Museum, he did those little rubber feet with the apple in them. Because for those who don't know, the very first Macintoshes that sort of rolled off the production line had a little Apple logo in the rubber feet that go underneath the computer. And he was sort of you can buy those from him if you want to add that little bit of flair to your compact Mac. And there's these are the good things to have. I mean, the feet, as you say, the rubber feet on these things all tend to die. So it's great to have people going in and fixing up all these little bits and pieces as they require. I'm one of these people that tends not to worry too much about the outside look as long as the insides work. But at the same time, some of those little sticky feet, they leave gunk on the table and stuff every time you bring them out. So it's probably not a bad idea to replace them anyway.
I know things like monitors and stuff. I mean, rubber feet on them. They're generally kind of pretty generic kind of rubber pads and stuff like that. But a lot of these, things, whether it's PowerBooks or stuff like that, they're very specific shapes, and you can't really kind of get an off the shelf one. So this seems like a perfect perfect use case.
Yep, no, it's fantastic that people are contributing all of these wonderful 3D printy things. I'm going to move to the next one here. This is let's have a look. We'll have to click on this because we need a picture. I want a picture. Oh, there's no picture. Here we go. Is there it?
Yeah.
There's a picture. There it is. Hang on. Okay. Right. So, okay. So it's a mount for the mirror drive door.
So it allows you to use an SFX power supply, an off-the-shelf SFX power supply in your mirror drive door after the original power supply has inevitably given up the ghost and died.
So, yes, because anyone who has a mirror drive door will know that those power supplies do die. It's not just a matter of recapping them. There are other things that go wrong with them as well. I have one of those on my bench at the moment, and I have replaced quite a few things on there, and it still doesn't work. So unless anyone has any secrets for me about what I should be trying next, I will probably throw it away and go with one of these power supplies. So that sounds a lot easier to me. Now, that's I think the last of the 3D printy things. I did want to just make a mention of a couple of things that I've been working on 3D printy wise as well. I'm not the first person to do this, but I have just done a slightly different design. But I got hold of a Macintosh SE 30 recently, where the floppy drive is absolutely gone. It's stuffed. So, and I don't really have a spare. But what I've decided to do instead is just build this SE30 without a floppy drive and just have a blue SCSI in it. And I've built a mounting bracket that slots into the original spot where the hard drive and floppy drive goes. And then where the floppy, sort of where the floppy slot is, it's black there. And then there's a little hole to put your SD card in. So instead of inserting a floppy drive into the front, you insert an SD card, and it also holds the light for the activity light. I'll be doing posts about this soon, showing all the things that it does. Someone has already done one of these, but they did them so that they actually matched the color of the original SE and poked through the front to look like the covers that you used to have on the dual drive SE model. Mine's actually designed to retain the original aesthetic of there being a hole for the floppy there, and then you just pop the SD card in there. But I will be posting information about that. Unfortunately, at the moment, the mounting holes are still for the the 2023-09 revision. This is before they move the holes, and that's because I've still got so many of these. I'm going to work my way through all of those, but I will be releasing one for the later revision as well, so for anyone that wants it. And it uses the way it slots in to the base it uses two little M3 screws that stick in the bottom that hook into that spot where it would have normally, had the little tabs go into. It's very hard to describe it, so I'll stop. But anyhow, there'll be information about that coming out soon. So I just wanted to let people know that's yet another Blue SCSI bracket coming to the market soon. Okay. So I am going to move to these. We're now on to resources. We're now dashed to the last two. So we'll motor along through these. So this is great. I mean, I could probably talk about this, but I'm happy to let someone else who might know more about this to talk about it. So
I'll take this if you don't mind.
Go
Bruce.
for it.
So I've also contributed to this because I've had a couple of weird L2 modules as well. But essentially, this is a full list, or as full list as you're going to get, of the various L2 cache modules used in PowerPC Macs. Each module that was made by different manufacturers, like, for example, you can see that these ones that you're looking at here, they all fit in the same socket. They do the same job. They have the same amount of memory. But some of them are made by Apple. Some of them are made by Motorola. Some of them are made by who knows. But they all basically were subcontracting out, hey, we need an L2 cache module that does this. These are the different part numbers that were used for the early X100 series, and then obviously moved through 6200, 6300s, going through into the 6400, 6500, the 20th anniversary Macintosh. So you can visually identify every single L2 cache module. So I can go, oh, that's the L2 cache, and you can see in the little lookup table how big that L2 cache is. You might. For example, there were 1 meg cache modules apparently made by people like Micromac for things like the Power Macintosh 7100, 8100 series that are almost mythical at this point. But we have part numbers and we have details on these sorts of things. So yeah, it's just one example of the resources that we have. So resources, basically, just kind of think of it as like a wiki of stuff, not necessarily all hardware related. I mean, there's things like textbooks inside Macintosh. There's schematics on there. Resources section is a very good place to go to for anybody looking for some very specific odd content. Browse through it at your leisure. You may find something you're looking for. And I've managed to find a couple of pocket data books for things like CRTs. Those books are long out of print for 20 plus years, and you generally won't find a copy anywhere else. So we do things like upload the PDF so that everybody can benefit from them.
One thing I wanted to, there's a couple of things I wanted to say about this. The first thing I wanted to say is that this is also during an era of clones, and a lot of the clones also had these cache cards or cache sim thingies with them as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the clones, like there was a lot of machines that revolved around the standard board that you would find in Macs, but obviously they had certain parts removed or whatever. But things like L2 cache, exactly. So they'd be made by Motorola, or you'd have stuff made by Pioneer, or.
And we're likely to see the same sorts of L2 caches in those clones as you would have seen in Apple's products, or
pretty much identical. Pretty much identical. Like, so, for example, if a Power Mac 7100 had 256K L2, you would get a 256K L2 in a Pioneer branded Mac clone.
Okay, cool. Because I know that I've got a few Motorola branded ones that came out of clones. So. But I will. After reading this,
be identical. If it fits in the slot, it'll work.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I've got since seeing this, I know I have a little stash of these, so I'm going to go and have a look and find out which ones I've got. So
this
was like,
I used this page when I was trying to find a cache module for my 6100, because you wouldn't believe the number of eBay sellers that don't look up what they have. And you'll be looking at L2 cache listings and be like, well, that doesn't look right for my Mac. And I went to this page and looked at the photos. I'm like, Nope, that actually goes to this other Mac. Glad I didn't buy that. And then I'd look at other listings where they'd have it listed for, say, I don't know, 6400 cache, and I look at them like, clear as day, that's a 6100 cache module. So yeah, very handy for if you're trying to find a cache module for one of these Macs. You can see what they look like before you browse eBay or somewhere like that, because the sellers may even just list it as a Mac L2 cache module, not even know which one it's for.
Yeah, and the photo will be so low grade you won't be able to read a part number. But if you can see what the shape of the board looks like and the position of the ICs, this is, again, one of those perfect resources.
I am just doing some housekeeping here. Do apologize. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I always wanted the 1 meg level 2 cache for my 6100 because that was my machine I grew up with, when I was a teenager. So, but as always, you always see it on Micro Mac or whatever for $20 or whatever it is. And obviously you can't order it, but
so I always saw that Micro Mac one and thought, did anyone ever see one of these for real in existence? Are they myth? Are they like a unicorn? Does anyone have one? Because
if you have one, you're probably keeping it.
I mean, you can just take a photo of it if you've got one, just so that we can see that. Oh my god, they do this, and they use these chips. And then once we find out what chips they use, maybe we can reverse engineer them. I mean, what that 1 meg module apparently was also able to speed up the onboard video because the entire onboard video could live in L2 cache.
Basically, that's basically what happens.
So your HPV video 45p and HDI monstrosity can be less crap. I mean, what you really want, what I dug out the other day, what you really want in a 6100 is remove, get the one with a PDS adapter and stick one of these in, the old HPV card.
Oh my goodness!
But these are becoming incredibly rare. This is the one for the 8100 110 AV. Not the AV, just the 8100 110, which is the 4 meg version.
Oh yeah,
that's
2 meg on board, and then another 2 meg in 512K.
I tried to put one of those in my 6100, but I ran into a problem with the that card is longer than the other video card, and it was actually interfering with the ability to put even a blue SCSI in the hard drive bay. Because the card is just long enough, there was no room for even a blue SCSI.
External blue SCSI.
I have a G3 card in my 6100, so I don't care as much anymore. But it's still, I don't know. It's always kind of mythical because I grew up with the 6100. It's like, how could I speed this up? How could you get those little clips to put on? Get another few megahertz out of your 66 megahertz. 601.
Oh dear, yes indeed. The old 61, the poor old, much maligned 601. I feel that the 601 cops a lot of flack from people because I think at the time that they brought them out, there weren't that many kind of PowerPC applications written. So people didn't get that instant dazzle of speed when they got one. They had to sort of wait for software to come out for it.
There was so much of the Mac OS that was still 68K code.
Yeah.
It was
90% of it.
90% of it was having to go through the emulator.
Yeah.
7.1.2 was basically like, look, it runs, okay? What more do you want? 7.5 comes out and it's like, okay, fine, look, we'll throw you a bone. Look, here, have some PowerPC control panels or something.
I actually did some speed tests for one of the videos that I'm working on at the moment between the LC475 or Quadra 605, depending on how you configure it, and the PowerPC 601 upgrade. It's just the 50 megahertz one, not the 66 megahertz one. And in actual fact, if you were a Photoshop user using Photoshop with PowerPC code, it was a big difference. I mean, like 5 times faster for doing things like unsharp mask and Gaussian blur. So it was definitely worth it for the right people sort of that were utilizing, that faster speed. But anyhow, all right, so that's excellent. I just quickly saying on the resources, once again, as Kai was saying, you've got to go in and check these things out. I mean, there was one that I discovered a while ago now, and I've probably even talked about it before, for calibrating the old auto inject floppy drives for the Mac. So they have a little interrupter that you move backwards and forwards to set the home position of the heads. And I've rehomed some drives before, but it was just like pure mysticism. You just sort of move it a little bit and hope, and move it a little bit and hope, and that. But this person has come up with a way of calibrating this with some level of accuracy, because the stepper motor has X amount of positions that it rotates, and so if you do a little mark on the screw part of the stepper motor, when you move the head around, you can actually gauge where the home position is just by where that actual mark moves to. It's a really, really clever way of knowing what's happening without just sort of guessing and hoping. So that one's a really, really good one. I do plan to do a video on that one eventually as well. So anywho, and then PowerBook LCD part number list.
Oh, it's been so useful, because so many panels used in these machines, and all made by a multitude of different people, and some of them even differed by, like, oh, in the US these were shipped with this part, but over here in the UK they came with this particular part. I know that, for example, I think it was for a PowerBook 145. The original panel was a Sharp, the LM64 P58, but there was another part made by, I think, Hitachi that we had over here. Remember having a look at this specifically because Technite was trying to repair a PowerBook. The existing screen was dead. And I said, there's actually a place in the UK, applemacparts.co.uk, that still has stock of the LCDs used in the models that we had here.
Wow.
So he went ahead and ordered one, and it didn't quite fit, because even though it was the same panel, would physically fit, different inverter was involved, and the display cable was slightly different. But still managed to, Technite being Technite, managed to make it work, and it worked well. So things like, it's more a cross-reference, list, and also because these machines ship with LCDs that are often used in industrial electronics, and they are still available from various manufacturers, from various distributors, although they can be quite expensive. So, for example, the PowerBook 180C, the screen used in that is still used to this day on a lot of industrial electronics, so they still sell it.
Wow.
It's $350, but you can still buy a new one.
$350.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this particular resource will list every single display used, at least so far. Whether they're passive matrix, active matrix, color, grayscale, black and white. If they have issues, and if they do have issues, what they are, etc. It's a fantastic resource.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And to hear that some of these are still being made, that is quite extraordinary. So that's again another fantastic resource. So that's a really good one to have in the Tinker Different resource section. Make sure everyone checks that out, because you may find little hidden gems in there. I know I've contributed a couple of things there, and I know other people that have contributed things there, and people have been putting, service guides and stuff for certain Macs, that sort of thing. So they're, really, really handy stuff. So that is the end of our list. So unless anyone has anything else to, sort of comment on, or if anyone has anything else to talk about, I think what we'd probably just do is invite anyone in the chat if they've got any questions they want to ask, either to us as individuals, to us as board members for Tinker Different, or to about just sort of Tinker Different in general, or any of these things that we've discussed today. So we did this last time, and I think we got like one question, so I don't expect this to be a huge segment of the video, but it is one of the things we do promise as part of the video. So if anyone does have any questions, please think of them and shoot them through now. But in the meantime, I'll just say, is there anything that you guys want to mention about some of the stuff we've looked at today, or add anything that we haven't talked about?
No, I guess one thing Blue Scuzzy related, we have it running on the Pico 2, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's not much to gain from running it on the Pico 2 right now, besides being on the Pico 2. But when the Wi-Fi version of that comes out, and we got more RAM, more memory, more flash size, we can start doing some interesting things.
So the Pico 2, does it use the same chip, or is it a...
No, it's the RP. So the 2040 was the Pico
Yep.
1, and the 2350 is the new one. And then there's a 2350B with more pins. But yeah, it's just faster and more PIO state machines to allow us to do some interesting things. And yeah, when they get the Wi-Fi version out, we'll be able to have it kind of feature for feature. It's just kind of keeping up with the latest chips, because I think, the Blue Scuzzy V1, we had the STM32F1 or Blue Pill or whatever it was, and it's that was long in the tooth when we started using it. So keeping on top of new things is just kind of beneficial to keep Scuzzy around for the next 30 years.
And are we likely to see sort of faster, throughput speeds and stuff for using the Pico 2?
Yeah, we get about 10% faster writes with the Pico 2. So if your use case is write intensive, that can be helpful. But yeah, we're pretty close to the theoretical max of the 10 megabit per second bus. So until you start going to wide or over fast Scuzzy,
I just have two questions about the latest round of Blue Scuzzy stuff. One is, there was a post in which there was a comparison between the various different disk drivers. I know there's the Apple disk drivers, but the FWB drivers, those numbers look wildly faster than the Apple disk drivers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Colin from This Does Not Compute did a video on that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a look at his channel, he's got a video that says something like increasing the speed of a Blue Scuzzy without any extra money or anything, like something along those lines, where he basically demonstrates that exact thing, that if he goes in and he formats these things using the FWB drivers, which I might add that is all I have ever used, because that's what I used to use back in the day. I've just always loved the stuff that FWB made, the hard disk toolkit and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's awesome.
No, yeah, and it seems there's the Apple drivers, you can boot from the Plus up to a PowerPC G3 with the same driver. So I mean, it's a driver from 1980 whatever. For Scuzzy, so it's very compatible. And so when we distribute images, you don't want someone's computer to crash when it starts up, because that's what can happen if you kind of mix and match these drivers. So we always distribute them with the kind of lowest common denominator, but many people don't understand that for Macintoshes, you can just update those drivers with FWB or something else and get quite a bit more performance out of it.
The second question I had, and this probably might be an annoying one that you've heard many times before, is with the new Pico 2 2350B with more GPIO pins, does that make a Blue Scuzzy 16-bit version possible? So 16-bit Scuzzy?
So it does make it possible. I guess the possibility is if we can code it up, or when we get time enough to code it up. But Androda and he's the guy who does a lot of the hardware stuff, or most of the hardware stuff, is definitely looking into that. But I'll make one comment about the Pico 2 kind of came out, and there's people who had early access to it, and people kind of expected everyone to have everything running right away, like the day it came out. And we're like, yeah, I'm hearing about the same second you heard about it, and all the libraries we use aren't updated yet, and the X, Y, and Z is like, yeah, I mean, it'll be a little bit, but we'll get around to it. So, but yeah, there's definitely some exciting possibilities there with. I'd
love to be able to stick one in an SCA enclosure and stick it in an Octane 2.
Yeah, that's everyone who buys, or the Unix world kind of wants that extra speed boost. So.
Well, I know the timing of this is perfect because it's always the way things work with my luck. Because I've just ordered all of the parts and PCBs to make 10 of the DB25 one, the external blue SCSI. So all of those parts will start arriving during next week, and I'll be building those, and I'll probably do a video on it as well. But yes, obviously it makes sense that I buy all of these things just before a new revision is coming out, because that's the way things generally work for me.
So it's a drop-in replacement. You actually don't have to, if you just buy a Pico 2, you can throw it on there. So.
Oh, throw it on there and then just like do a firmware update type thing.
Yeah, we have a public build of that out there. So
okay, well, I won't buy too many Pico ones then. I'll just buy a few of those. I'll wait for the Wi-Fi ones to come out though, because I have to say, everyone I build now, I build with Wi-Fi, because it just makes life so. I have a little FTP server that I have running in here, just for on my local network sort of thing, and so I do lots and lots and lots of transfers onto my Vintage Macs just via FTP. If I can't if it's on in particular, if it's on a Mac where I don't have access to the SD card of the Blue SCSI, and just being able to get like a really old Mac and make it a Wi-Fi Mac, it's just absolutely wonderful. I don't care how slow it is. I'll go off and make a cup of coffee while things are copying. It's just having that connection is just a really wonderful thing to have.
It's kind of funny. I mean, I did some speed comparisons. Someone sent me an EtherMac SCSI to Ethernet adapter, and that I was like, well, I wonder if the drivers on that one is better than the Dynaport one or something like that. But so I installed it, and it's actually much slower than even our emulated version. So I mean, these weren't fast back in the day either. So I mean, it's polling SCSI. It's just
and
what it is.
It's all relative, isn't it? They were faster than Local Talk for the sorts of Macs that were using these SCSI Ethernet adapters. Number one, it was able to get them onto the Ethernet network in the first place. But the other was, up until that point, it was Local Talk, and it's a lot faster than Local Talk. So it's definitely an advantage, that's for sure.
I can only hope that the Pico 2W, if it ever does appear, or when it appears rather, has an RPSMA header for an external antenna.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, that's we get the biggest. I mean, the biggest thing is in supporting this is just people being just 20 feet away or 40 feet away from their AP, and they just can't connect. And so you gotta move a little closer.
Yes.
I mean, the antenna is just so tiny. There's
still no sitting in a Starbucks on a PowerBook 500.
You can. Might have to just have your phone next to you with a
hotspot.
Yep.
It's wonderful stuff. So anything else that anyone wants to talk about? We've got to keep it moving to get with this flood of questions that's been coming in here.
I would like to say a hello to the Tech Knight, who has just joined us.
Yes, hello.
He is one of our moderators on both the forum and on the Discord as well.
And of course, we did feature some stuff of his during the show tonight, did we not? I'm sure I saw his name come up.
Yes, it was on the EGRET video.
That's right, the EGRET.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think it was the LC. Was it LC2?
It was the LC2. Yeah,
It was an LC2.
Yep,
Yes.
indeed. So I will ask the question, seeing as no one else has, and I did make a joke about this before. How is the 2SI Reloaded board coming along, Kai?
Go away.
Okay, good. That's good.
It's okay. No. So there has been some progress, but not on the actual motherboard side of things yet. I've been working with Colin, as you may have seen in one of his recent videos on power supplies for the 2SI.
Yes.
On the reproduction boards for the existing power supply. Now, the schematics for that PSU are only available through the PowerBook schematics, which are garbage, unfortunately. But the latest batch of PCBs has been produced, and with wider hole spacings for things like transformers and stuff that have been desoldered off the original board, because the hole clearances were a little bit tight for used components, and in some cases even had to be drilled out because it's just impossible to remove like the amount of solder that was on legs of components, so just make the holes bigger, or, just do a little bit of a rejig. So those boards are around. That's all I can kind of really say for the moment. And the actual 2SI Reloaded itself, I still have the logic boards here. I need to get basically a bunch of stuff over to Max, who's over in Liphook in Hampshire. Basically, give him half of these boards. I take the other half of the boards. I take him a logic analyzer and bribe him with it. And basically, we go from there.
Okay, great. Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, those power supplies that I saw in Colin's video, are the reproduction ones, just look fantastic. And I have to admit, the 2SI that I have, the power supply works, but should I get hold of another one, I don't think I'll even bother with the recapping, and I'll just go with those reproduction ones. They just look like a really good way to go.
That's the same as Quadra 700, isn't it? 2SI?
Sorry, second.
Is the Quadra 700 the same power supply?
No, they've got the same. They've all got the same connector on them, but they're all different shapes and sizes. So, I mean, I think all of them, the 2CI, 2CX, Quadra 700, even the VX and the 2VI, and the 650, you can just take the power supply out and stick it on the board. It just doesn't fit in the case.
I think the 2SI power supply is
weird,
longer.
Oh yeah.
No,
I think the others are intercompatible, because I have a Performa 600 and a 2CI, and like I can swap those two power supplies. They will fit in the other case, because I think they standardized the shape for those. But the 2SI is like a long, thin power supply.
Yeah,
that's electrically compatible, but not physically compatible.
The 2CI is I salvaged the power supply for my Quadra 700. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So you said you're doing it's the 2SI you're reloaded?
The 2SI Reloaded, yes, is the next project.
But are you going to add turn power? I mean, it's just
I've asked for that.
So things like that are actually easily addable. It is literally just a case of it was Jack 68K sent me basically a big box just full of 2SI boards, and I was expecting battery bombs, and every single one I'm like, I can salvage that. I can salvage that as well. There's none of them that are in bad enough condition. So if anyone, I want really bad boards, like really awful, shitty, battery bombed, being past the xenomorph kind of boards that have no hope of ever being rescued.
I do actually have a couple, and I grabbed one and I took all the components off, and then I sanded off all of the mask, but there was a warp in the board, and the warp resulted in me accidentally sanding off a whole bunch of the actual traces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same again with another battery bomb board that I have. I'm going to do the same thing and remove it, but I'm going to get the mask off using a different method. I have since discovered a different method of getting mask off that ends up with really nice, clean results and makes all of the traces nice and easy to see and all that. So,
also, question from Garrett. I cannot, as I do not have any kind of social media whatsoever.
Smart man.
I deleted Facebook in 2018. Do not miss it. I removed the X, as they call it.
It'll always be Twitter to me.
Yeah, the day the idiot took over is the day I was like, okay, bye.
Yeah, what a dumpster fire that thing is now. But anyhow, I mean, look, Facebook works for me. I will say that because I just use it as a way of connecting with people with the same hobbies. So I've got a handful of friends on there, but mostly I'm just subscribed to hobby groups, whether it be 3D printing or whether it be retro computing. And so I just jump onto Facebook and all I see are feeds from my hobby. And that's great. I enjoy that. I mean, I enjoy just going through and looking at all these things that people are doing. And that's so in that regard, it works quite well for me because I don't see all stupid posts from stupid people. So, yeah. But anyhow, so that's.
Well,
I'm just saying
just,
you can make it work for you.
Yeah, just follow us on Tinker Different. Jump over there.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the best thing to do. Yeah,
If you want to know what we're doing, go there.
Yeah. Well, I think we could probably wrap things up at this stage because we have been going for nearly 2 hours. We did cover some amazing stuff. Unless anyone else has anything they would like to add or anything like that, please, sort of jump in now. Otherwise, I will wrap things up and we'll call it a day. We will be doing more of these in the future. We haven't really worked out any sort of kind of scheduling for these. We generally get together in the meetings and we just go, I think it's time for another live stream. And we thought this is a good one because it was a 3-year anniversary, which is pretty amazing. I mean, that time has absolutely flown by, but we've managed to grow a really big and great community on the forum. There's lots of really, really clever people and nice, friendly people on there, and it's just been an absolutely wonderful thing for everyone. So yeah, I think the plan is to try and do like 2 of these a year, one every 6 months, something along those lines.
Every 6 months is, I think, what we basically kind of shoot for. Because even though we do have a steadily increasing user base, and every time we're mentioned anywhere else, we usually get like a nice influx of people. Hardware, software, 3D printing projects, all take time for people to kind of get around to. Roughly this time of year, I find that we end up getting more people like, well, it's dark outside and I don't want to go out, so let me stay indoors and work on this thing that I've been thinking of. We tend to end up in in that sort of zone. So we may in 6 months' time have a whole bunch more stuff to show you guys, or updates on existing stuff that we've already shown you in the past that we said we'll circle back to this in next time we have an update for you. One thing I did want to mention was that with regards to members, we're just shy of 2,000 members at this point, which is pretty impressive, and it's been nice organic growth throughout, and we're starting to get noticed. Just in the general wider community for the kind of stuff that that we've got going on uniquely within our community that doesn't seem to happen anywhere else.
Yep, indeed. All right. Well, and when we do a live stream, we do announce it on the forum in the announcements section, letting people know what the date is with a link to it, so people can go in and click on it, press the notify me button, so they're not going to miss it. So letting people know to look out for that in the announcements section of Tinker Different. I think we gave about 3 weeks notice, I think, something like that for this one. We'll do probably the same for the next one.
Smash button.
Yeah, sorry?
Don't forget that we have people like the smash button.
Yes, that's right. Like the smash button, everyone, please. We do appreciate it. And if you are watching this and you are not a subscriber, please press the subscribe button and become. You won't get much in the way of notifications from us or anything like that. It's not like you're going to get bombarded when you hit the subscribe and notify button, because we, as I say, we only stream a couple of times a year. But anyhow, that is, I think, the end of this one. So I just need to check and see if I've got anything to play for finishing it. I don't think I do. I don't have an outro, so we'll just have to end the stream. That's there'll be no little video playing at the end. So anyhow, once again, thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you to anyone who is watching this on the replay. Hello to you as well. Sorry you weren't able to make it for the live show. Please feel free to leave comments about any of the stuff that we've talked about here, or potentially you might like us to talk about in a future live stream, or any questions you might have or anything. So feel free to comment away on this video, and I hope to see you at the next one. Thank you to all you guys for joining us, and also thank you to Steve, who joined us for a little while for this live stream. So again, thank you guys for joining. I hope to see you at the next one, and hope to see everyone on the Tinker Different forum. So that's it from us. So bye-bye to all, and hope to see you at the next one.
See ya.
See you later, guys.